No outsiders allowed. Across Europe, this sentiment has become a deafening roar. Anti-immigrant rhetoric is intensifying, fueling a relentless cycle of demonstrations and riots. Society feels fractured, shrouded in a fog of mistrust. Cold, hostile glares pierce through anyone crossing borders, and the tension in the air is pulled so tight it feels ready to snap. Yet, in one specific French city, a scene unfolds that defies all logic, a mesmerizing spectacle where the city pulses not with rage, but with a fanatical affection. At the epicenter of this anomaly are not locals, but a community of Americans. In a climate where foreigner has become a dirty word, these Americans are receiving a hero's welcome. The French locals, usually so protective of their identity, seem to speak in unison. In this country, the only people we trust implicitly are the Americans. This statement sends a shockwave through the conventional wisdom of the Western world. Everyone is left in disbelief. Why, amidst a continental crisis, are Americans the sole exception? What is the startling truth hidden behind this unique bond? Let's step into the story. Part 2. The City on the Hill. The streets of Europe are burning. For days, corners of Paris, Naples, and Rome have been choked by the smoke of anti-immigration protests. People hold placards high, shouting angry slogans. Cars are rocked. Stones are thrown. The chaos has bled into tourist zones. Visitors in Paris find themselves swept up in the turmoil, while Molotov cocktails paint the night skies of Italy a terrifying red. Youth clash with riot police. Shattered storefronts dominate the evening news. Citizens scream that immigration policies are destroying the nation. Social anxiety has reached its boiling point. In France, the situation is dire. Paris and Marseille are locked in a loop of massive demonstrations. Thousands gather in central plazas, their chants of "We don't need you" drowning out the city sounds. Black banners unfurl in the wind as riot police raise their shields, the air thick with the imminent threat of tear gas. Television screens broadcast images of exhausted mothers clutching their children, spreading fear and fatigue into living rooms across the continent. Economic stagnation, deteriorating safety, rising unemployment, everything is blamed on the outsider. The voices of politicians calling for tolerance are faint, drowned out by the roar of a burning Europe. Everything is on fire, except for Lyon. Sitting in southeastern France, Lyon stands as a solitary oasis. It too is home to immigrants and foreign workers. Yet, mysteriously, it lacks the razor-edge tension of Paris or Marseille. In the evenings, the shopping districts echo with laughter. People queue calmly in front of bakeries. Conversations on cafe terraces are peaceful and animated. There are no protest signs. No lines of armored police. For a first-time visitor, the contrast between the chaos on the news and the peace before their eyes is disorienting. Why is this place different? Local media have dubbed Lyon the exception. Despite a significant foreign population, there is no severe confrontation. Beneath this tranquility lies a secret that statistics and policy papers cannot explain. Unlocking this mystery begins with a small, unassuming group, the American expatriate community. Part 3. The Power of the 1.2%. As Lyon's unique stability garnered attention, delegation teams from other cities arrived, desperate for answers. How does one region in the same country breathe such different air? The mystery ignited a firestorm on social media. Why hasn't Lyon collapsed? Became a trending topic. Comment sections were flooded with theories. Better policing? Stronger economy? But the testimony of local residents revealed a surprising truth. The catalyst for this atmospheric shift was a specific micro-community, the Americans. Statistically, they shouldn't matter. They make up barely 1.2% of the population, roughly 8,000 people. Numbers suggest they should be invisible. Reality suggests otherwise. This modest group possesses an influence potent enough to soften the entire city. They are quiet and polite, one resident remarked. But it's more than that. You can feel that they genuinely cherish the city. Another resident added, they aren't outsiders. They are our partners. Why has this small group won such immense trust? Initially, the internet was skeptical. Skepticism turned to mockery. Americans are immigrants too, users sneered. Immigrants are immigrants. They'll ruin it eventually. The sarcasm emojis piled up. But then, the narrative shifted. French nationals living in Lyon began to speak up. They aren't an invasive species. They make our lives richer. Specific stories began to circulate. An American family moving into a neighborhood, greeting neighbors in broken but earnest French. Children holding doors open, behaving with impeccable manners at school. A shopkeeper shared, they don't just buy and leave. When they pay, they look you in the eye and say merci with real gratitude. It wasn't a grand gesture, it was the accumulation of decency. The mockery faded, replaced by a half-joking longing. If all immigrants were American, we wouldn't have any problems. Even the extreme sentiment of Americans only, no one else began to surface. The skepticism was disarmed by the undeniable reality of trust, a force that cannot be measured by numbers, yet changed the global conversation. Part 4. A history of sweat and handshakes. To understand this bond, we must look back. The roots of this relationship were planted not in the digital age, but in the post-war reconstruction of the 1950s. While the United States was emerging as a superpower, a specific contingent of American engineers and industrialists turned their eyes to France. They weren't there to conquer or command. They were there to collaborate. Lyon, a historic hub of precision manufacturing and silk weaving, held artisanal secrets that even American mass production hadn't mastered. American technicians arrived in Lyon, not with the arrogance often attributed to them, but with rolled-up sleeves. They were there to learn the nuance of French craftsmanship and merge it with American innovation. They overcame the language barrier through the universal language of hard work. They sweated on the factory floors, stood their ground when misunderstood, and humbly sought cooperation. At first, the French were wary. They didn't welcome this New World encroachment. However, seeing the Americans hunched over blueprints late into the night, failing, trying again, and respecting the local methods, a silent respect blossomed. A local craftsman later recalled, they didn't look like they were just doing a job. They looked like they were carrying the future of their country and respect for ours on their shoulders. It wasn't a fleeting exchange. American companies established headquarters in Lyon, growing with the city. It became a history of mutual learning. No one in the 1950s could have predicted that 70 years later, this professional respect would evolve into a silent miracle. Part 5. Beyond the bottom line. Decades later, that seed of collaboration has grown into a forest. Today, Lyon is a stronghold for American enterprise in Europe, aerospace, biotech, finance, and digital tech. Over 600 American companies operate here. Usually, such a massive foreign corporate presence invites friction. Locals worry about gentrification, job theft, or the erosion of local culture. Yet in Lyon, the sentiment is the opposite. Because the Americans are here, we feel secure. This isn't about GDP. It's about conduct. The Americans in Lyon defy the stereotype of the brash, loud tourist. They prioritize harmony. In business, they favor trust over aggressive marketing. A French executive noted in an interview, they don't put profit above honor. They keep contracts. They don't break promises. They build credit, drop by drop. That is why we work with them. In the neighborhoods, American families are the first to volunteer for community cleanups. They don't wait to be invited, they show up. They have cultivated an image not of expats, but of guardians of the city. 600 foreign companies should be a wall dividing the society. Instead, the Americans turn themselves into a bridge. Part 6. The jazz on the river, the cultural fusion. The truest test of integration is culture. In most cities, a sudden influx of foreign culture creates pressure. In Lyon, it created a festival. Every year, the American Days Festival takes over the banks of the Rhone. It attracts thousands, but it is not a display of cultural superiority. At the craft beer and barbecue stands, You see French locals debating the merits of an IPA or a brisket slider with American pitmasters. During a jazz performance, that great American art form, musicians invite French players on stage for impromptu jam sessions. Come on up. Let's play. It's a space where the line between performer and audience, local and foreigner, dissolves. You see adaptations that would be heresy elsewhere. Cheeseburgers served on baguettes, American folk dancing mixed with local traditional steps. Instead of purists screaming, "That's not authentic," the Americans laugh and say, "That's a cool idea." This flexibility unlocked the French heart. A French woman noted, "They don't force their culture on us. They share it. They say, 'Come, let's do this together.' So we feel safe opening up." In schools, American children introduce their classmates to Thanksgiving traditions while happily adopting local customs. It is not a clash of civilizations. It is a remix. They didn't erase their differences. They harmonized them. Part 7. The Hurricane and the Heart. But was this friendship fair weather only? The answer came a few years ago when a massive hurricane devastated the American Gulf Coast. Images of submerged cities and shattered homes flashed across screens worldwide. In Lyon, the shock was palpable. For the American community, it was a day of mourning. The next morning, a surreal scene unfolded in front of the American International School in Lyon. In the pouring rain, a long line of French citizens stood waiting. They held donation boxes, canned food, and blankets. An elderly French man, hands trembling, dropped coins into a box and whispered, "This is repayment. It is time we return the kindness we have received." American residents were moved to tears. The line didn't end. It spread to churches, station plazas, and street corners. It wasn't organized by the government. It was spontaneous. Local newspapers ran the headline, "All of Lyon is moving." Children walked into American community centers clutching piggy banks. This solidarity wasn't accidental. It was the dividend of decades of quiet trust. The city viewed the Americans not as them, but as us. A young Frenchman posted online, "The Americans always did their duty silently. Now that they are in trouble, we cannot stand by and watch." The disaster revealed the truth. The Americans had transcended the label of immigrant. They were family. Part 8. The Boy on the Stage. Years after the hurricane, during an International Understanding Day at a Lyon school, the final lesson was delivered. Children from various backgrounds paraded in traditional dress. The atmosphere was festive. Then, an 8-year-old American boy walked to the microphone. The audience expected a speech about burgers or baseball. Instead, the small boy said, "Instead of talking about how we are different, shouldn't we look for what makes us the same?" The auditorium fell silent. The boy and his French friends began to list comparisons, the American spirit of innovation and the French tradition of mastery, the American warmth and the French loyalty. Even if our flags are different, they smiled. What we value is the same. They ended with a powerful plea. Borders are not walls. They can be bridges. Thunderous applause erupted. Parents wept. The video of that speech went viral, with comments flooding in from around the globe. If the future is in the hands of kids like this, we'll be okay. It was a quiet indictment of the adult world. In an era screaming about division, a child reminded us that looking for common ground is the first step toward survival. Conclusion: the hemostat for a wounded world. Why only the Americans? This question has rippled out from Lyon to the rest of the world. The answer isn't in a policy paper. It is in the quiet presence of this community. They didn't succeed because they were Americans. They succeeded because of how they behaved. They replaced arrogance with humility. They replaced isolation with engagement. They proved that you can love your homeland while deeply honoring the land that hosts you. They are being called the hemostat, a tool to stop the bleeding of a divided world. In a Europe torn apart by the rejection of the other, the American community in Lyon has quietly overturned the narrative. Their existence asks a fundamental question to the world. Not, why are they special? But rather, why can't the rest